It's time for a City Channel Dubuque featurette.
The role in public art, it's absolutely vital, I think, to communities and building a culture in a community. At any one point, you drive into any one town, it all looks the same essentially until you start giving it character, whether it's through public art, through architecture, through design, those sort of things. But what sets those towns apart, especially in Dubuque here, is the way they've set up the riverfront. Adding the element of public art has really given it its own character.
And one of the reasons I love doing outdoor pieces in public art venues such as this is that everyone can come and see them. Little kids can come up and play with it. People can see it as they go across their morning stroll and interact with it in a way that they may not in a different space.
Public art does a number of things. One, it's an educational resource for the community. It generates critical thinking in terms of the sculptures themselves, in terms of the why, where, and what.
So I think the importance of public art in our cities all around the nation, and they're all around the world. For me personally, my kind of goal is to, when I love walking down the street and seeing art just in unexpected places, just kind of to get your mind out of the daily grind, the daily routine. I think that public art is a great way to do that.
And I think in our everyday lives, we don't deal with, the whimsical or the what if, or just that little part of our brain that talks about or that thinks about, differences of, more exciting or jogging our mind.
And it seems like the people of Dubuque support the arts quite well. So I'm just very, very pleased to be a part of such a wonderful effort.
My name's Jeremy Rudd. I'm a sculptor from Dyersville, Iowa. I've been living in the area for about 8 years. My sculpture this year is called Onward and Upward, and it is a steel and wooden sculpture that was fabricated in the last 6 months or so. And this piece is new. It's in the same vein as some other work I had previous experience being in the Riverwalk with a piece called Wishing Well about 4 or 5 years ago. And this is a kind of continuation of the allegorical landscapes I was working on at that time. This piece is a little bit more about the cyclical nature of the processes of agriculture and man's interactions with the environment. Moving back to the Midwest after several years away, I really appreciate the tenuousness of the relationship between agriculture and environment. You never hear a weather report without having someone be upset or ecstatic about it, and it depends on who you talk to. And so this piece is kind of including time into the process of the previous piece, and that's where the spiral shape kind of comes from. And each layer gets bigger or smaller, kind of depending on how that year was or how that cycle was, but again, dealing with issues of resource management and allocation and movement of, particularly in this case, water resources from one place to another.
My name is Tim Adams. I'm from Webster City, and the name of my piece is The Mines of Spain. And the Mines of Spain, of course, are here in Dubuque, and it's basically a takeoff of the lead mining, the native limestone, outcrop stone that the geology of the river, and also the interaction of the lead mining with the early French settlers, and that is kind of the impetus for this piece of artwork. I've incorporated just steel and limestone, and the steel is to represent the lead, and the limestone, of course, is the native material. And the idea with the head, so to speak, it's a real abstract version of, if you look at it from one angle, you see a little bit of an Indian, head, and maybe when you look at it from another angle, you might see a little bit of an early American settler.
I'm Stephanie Saylor from Swisher, Iowa, and I created the piece Willow Dust. Willow dust is an enlarged piece of pollen, actually. A very small pollen come from the willow tree that I enlarged to make into something that is sculpturally interesting and something that people can interact with. I tend to really enjoy very small things like little seed pods or other aspects of nature that you typically don't see on a daily basis. But then when you have the opportunity to come up close to it, investigate it, then you can see all the beautiful forms and how lovely it actually is.
My name is Katz. I'm a sculptor from Pontiac, Michigan. My sculpture that I'm putting up on Art on the River this year is called Winter Moon. Winter Moon is a fabricated aluminum sculpture that assembles and disassembles for transportation. The concept is structural in the sense it deals with structural and geometric relationships in combination with open space. They're transparent shapes rather than solid forms. And the sculpture is about the metamorphosis that we all share in the human experience from the time we're born until the time we leave the planet. So, you know, Winter Moon is sort of a metaphor for that last period of time of our life.
My name is Sister Margaret Mere, BVM. I live here in Dubuque. I'm very happy to have been selected for this show, this exhibition. I did a piece called Always the Horrors of War. I was upset by all the beheadings that have been going on in the Middle East. They seem to always be innocent people and done very, very cruelly. So it's been on my mind. And I always do horses anyway, so I thought instead of doing people's heads, I would do horse heads, because they are always innocent. You know, they're simply doing what their masters require of them. So they represent all the innocent people who have suffered at the hands of the militants. I know it's rather grim, and I also did, for the poles, I did sort of abstract bones. And I have to admit, while I was cutting them out, which was a fairly long process, I kept thinking about the mass graves that they keep finding. So that's where the piece comes from. I know it's not very happy, it's fairly grim, but it does reflect reality at this point in life and our major conflict I think we have that's going to go on probably for a long time with these militants.
My name is Dan Perry. I'm from Waterloo, Iowa. The title of my sculpture is Prairie Vane, as in weather vane. The basis for this sculpture is growing up, I grew up in a city, and I also grew up on the West Coast and in a Midwest city. So moving back here and living in Iowa for the past, I guess, 7, 8, 9 years has really started to influence my sort of thinking in my artwork, and also just how the rural lifestyle, the sort of the prairie of Iowa, and how we use sort of ancient or old methods to solve modern problems, and applying those to contemporary issues, and that sort of influenced the way I approach my work, especially this piece.
My name is Kevin Casey. I'm out of Cedar Falls, Iowa. I'm the creator of Coalesce, my sculpture. One of my, I guess, strong sculptural beliefs is that it doesn't necessarily have to have any particular meaning or imply any kind of direction to lead the viewers to think of any particular problem or issue in the world or anything like that, which a lot of art does. Mine is more about kind of the material and the process of working with it. My kind of goal is to make the stainless steel do what it doesn't want to do, and make it create beautiful forms by doing that. So that's mostly what this kind of piece is about, and it's the first of a series of that type of work. So having my sculpture in the Art on the River exhibition is pretty important to me. The reason why this one really stands out to me was because I'm actually from Cascade, a small town basically just outside of Dubuque. So it's kind of home for me. So that's a big part of it. Plus it's right on the river. It's a beautiful location. So I'm very happy to be here.
My name is Jacob McGinn, and I'm from Cedar Falls. I just graduated from University of Northern Iowa, and here's my piece behind me, Metamorphosis. And the work is kind of loosely based off a short film from the 19th century. I believe it's from Germany, but anywho, the story just goes, this guy slowly turns into a bug, and he doesn't realize he's turning into a bug, and like his language gets all morphed up, he starts scaring his family, and just basically at the end of the story, he just totally metamorphosizes into a human bug basically, and he kind of just basically dies alone inside his room because he starves and so forth. So then this is just kind of an idea of if he actually made it outside of his house and then he just kind of maybe just went on the run, or just, you know, just kind of got out and lived basically, and that's basically it. So because I just kind of started off kind of just with the basic chest form, and then just kind of built it out from that, and then I just got some feedback about this one story, and then I read it, and then I'm like, well, I can keep kind of making connections, and then that's basically where it came from.
My name is Chris Booga. I'm a sculpture professor at Southeast Missouri State University in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. My sculpture titled Victoria is actually a kind of a variation on a well-known sculpture titled Nike of Samothrace, or Winged Victory. It's a old Greek sculpture that's from the Louvre. It actually exists in the Louvre right now. And my take on the piece is a little heavier, or sometimes a little bit earthier or darker than the original piece that it's borrowing from, where I have this winged kind of form. It looks geologic, sitting on top of what looks like an eroded column that's supposed to kind of allude to how the many things that are involved in victory. And so when you think about Victoria or victory, it can mean many different things. And a lot of times it's something that's heavy. It's something that has a lot of history to it, a lot of weight to it. And it's not always light and free like a winged, angel. And so that's kind of what I wanted my piece to be about, was, really looking at the weight of a situation. And in this case, I also was able to work with a form that I've always loved, with winged victory.
Featurettes are short films set in and about Dubuque that air at various times throughout the day on your local government channel, City Channel Dubuque.